later. So.
Do you want to get back on?
They were going underneath the truck.
Okay,
I'd like to call to order the June 28th Vestavia Hills Board of Education meeting. We'll start with the approval of the agenda. I'd like to call for a motion to approve the board agenda.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. I'll call for approval of the board minutes from June 7th. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Approved. All right, then we'll move to recommendations. Dr. Freeman.
All right, our first recognition is, they're all very well deserved in light of the past year. I think that you know how much I think of Brenda Seal and the nurses team for what they did this past year. Boy, I don't think you get into school nursing thinking you'll do this. I don't think you'll get into teaching thinking or administrating that you'll go through a pandemic. But it sure was great to know that we have been staffed with nurses in all of our schools. And this year we asked Brenda to take on a new role. And for some reason, she agreed to be the nurse administrator for the school system, and even did it in the midst of the pandemic. So she was recently named by the Alabama Association of Nurses as the lead nurse of the year in the state amongst our schools. And so I wanted to recognize her this evening. Brenda, congratulations. So I thought what might be a nice thing to do just to catch a few people off guard is because a lot of our principals in the room is maybe just to hear a few words about the work that she did in the meeting we had, she and her team. So Tanya.
Well, okay, so Nurse Brenda's near and dear to my soul because there were so many times that, of course, you all know as administrators and even parents, so many concerns and fears that I would text her and she would call me back. It didn't matter what time of day or night. And I would say, Nurse Brenda, I have got to have some help and my word is not enough. They want a medical expert. She goes, I've got this. She said that to me more times than I can count. I've got this. And she was able to talk parents off of pulling their kids out and going remote, just helping me think through things to try to make school possible. I am telling you, she was like, when I say just an angel, absolutely. She earned her wings and then some.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Alicia.
Yeah, well, I would just echo that same thing. It was just uncharted territory for everyone. And so it felt so comfortable to know that you had somebody that was in your corner on the medical side of things that could talk medical things and could help us understand what was going to be best practice for us in the classroom. She walked classrooms with us and said, okay, well, this isn't going to work. This is not social distance, but she would just help us think through it clearly from a medical perspective. And so like Tanya, she was always available to us. Weekends weren't off limits. When your whole preschool class goes down at 8 p.m. and you got to tell those parents they can't come in the morning, it's not fun. And she's like, okay, I'll help, So really, we do appreciate the work that she did so much. So.
In
an effort to make this all about myself, I was on the committee that helped choose. And I can tell you that over and over again, I would say, I helped choose her. I mean, and I say that because she kept making me proud again and again and again and again. Everything they said, just always available, always responsive. The tough dilemmas, she would affirm. If we were off base, she would gently, get us back on the right track. So nothing but great things to say about Brenda.
Yeah, I'd like to add that one of the great benefits I think of having Brenda this year, board members, was that in the midst of so many different perspectives, medical perspectives, and all other kind of perspectives, I always found Brenda to find the middle of the road, keep us centered about keeping kids in school, doing what's best for our children, and not overreacting in different situations. And that was critical because every system did not have that benefit. So I appreciate it, Brenda.
Thank you.
Yeah. You have your speech prepared.
But thank you.
Appreciate it. So well deserved.
Thank you.
And recently received her recognition in Auburn during the annual convention. So Very well done. Okay, in keeping with our great work with character education, Vestavia Hills Elementary Highlights this past year received another 2 Promising Practice Awards. That's right. And without me trying to explain them and mess them up, it had much to do with mentorship programs, some unique ways to engage 5th grade boys. Would you just share with the board a little bit what character.org said about these promising practices?
Yeah, so one was called Grubhub, which was affectionately named by Jason Bostic. But as you know, there's not a huge number of males working in the elementary level. And so he just capitalized on some of our aides that were in the building that are men and some of our custodians that are men, and asked them if they'd be willing to help mentor the 5th grade boys and talk about character. And so they met monthly with our 5th graders and had the boys named the group Grubhub. And it was like no girls allowed. So I was never allowed to go. But I heard wonderful things about it. They had guest speakers and it really was an awesome opportunity for them to talk to the boys about character and being men of integrity. And then our other group was the Student Hope Leadership Academy. So many of you know that we have Hope Leadership for our teachers and faculty, and many of us have been on teams for a couple of years now. And so they had never done an elementary student Hope Academy where we were really allowing students to be the voice and helping to build character in our schools. And so we did that even during the pandemic year. And we had something in the fall and something in the spring where we had Liz Huntley come and speak to our 5th graders. And we had a whole day where the students were engaged in learning about their leadership style. And then the following semester, it was really more practical where they were able to put that work into play. And so they helped build our core values. They built behavior videos for next year's group. They created all kinds of things. We did team building activities. The highlight of the day was having Youth Leadership Vestavia Hills come over. Those kids came over and spoke to them about what they would want to know if they were to go back to middle school and how they could talk about learning, service, and leadership from a student perspective. And it was really phenomenal. The students just had a wonderful experience engaging with those high school students, and we were really grateful for that partnership. So it was a good day.
Fantastic. And I did to Grubhub.
Yes, that's right.
It was great. It's fantastic. Well, that's just such a brilliant idea of engaging those boys. So it's fantastic. Thanks. We also have a Promising Practice Award. Character.org has recognized Vestavia Hills Elementary East. Not their first time for character recognitions, but this one had to do with Friendship Initiative, which started a couple of years ago. And I think I was just captured by what the idea of Friendship Initiative is about. Small, would you share?
It's really simple. We just wanted to know which kids in the building are more or less unconnected, isolated, near isolated. It's a concerted effort for teachers to know the social network of their classroom. They would complete sociograms where they did a visual representation of which kids played with which kids, which kids were sitting together, who had nobody. You know, when you finish making that and you see the kids who have maybe one connection or no real solid connections. And then it would go into sharing best practices that they had researched. And there's all kind of really creative things that other teachers have come up with out there. And we would share those. And it would be things like kids writing down on index cards who they would like to sit by. You know, the teacher trying to make it work out. So that this kid who didn't have a friend could be sat near someone. You know, if you've had children of your own, you know there's no one-size-fits-all way to, you know, you might think, oh, this kid will be my child's best friend if only I work my magic. You know, that rarely works. But all we could do was to try to set to be aware and then try to use as many strategies as possible to help these kids flourish and go from being a non-connected kid to a connected kid. And that's really what that's all about.
I appreciate it. Excellent work. Congratulations, both Kyle Heights and East. Well done. Before I go, if I may, just a matter of personal privilege here, since we're heading into voting items, I did want to welcome our newest board member, Jay Stewart. Welcome, Jay Stewart. Glad to have you.
I appreciate
You have
it.
your speaker.
I do not. I really do. Just hearing what's going on is just very humbling and proud to be from Vestavia and to be part of Vestavia and be part of this board. It's an honor. It really is.
Thanks. Glad you're with us. All right, board members, item 5 is consent. I recommend the board approve consent items related to overnight trips and disposal of property.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation to approve the following consent items. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
All right, our financial statement is up next. Ms. Lynn.
Good afternoon, board members. I have provided the May 2021 financial statements and check register for your review. As of May 2021, we've collected 94.4% of our budgeted ad valorem tax revenues compared to 94.5% that we have received at this time last year. We are on track to collect the total amount budgeted by the end of the fiscal year. And our total expenditures as of May were 68.71% of the budget compared to 69.4% last year. All things being equal would be at 66.67% of our budget at this time. So 68.71% is a good indicator because we've already paid some large one-time expenditures. And all board bank accounts have been reconciled as of May 31st, 2021.
And the area that's of particular interest, I think, is where our expenditures are largely for personal services, and those are tracking right on the budget, which is very good. Excellent work. So I recommend the board approve the financial statement for May 2021.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation to approve the financial statement. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
All right. The second item, under business, is to approve budget amendment 2, and I recommend the board approve budget amendment 2 as submitted.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation to approve the budget amendment number 2. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Board members, we approved budget amendment 1 in March, and typically you'll have a couple of these amendments. This one's more specific to some revenue, so according to you.
Yeah, so budget amendment 2 was needed to increase the general fund and capital projects fund ending fund balance at 9/30/2020 for ESSER reserve allocation that we received. We're basically paying ourselves back for COVID expenditures in 2020. And then the special revenue fund was amended to include the ESSER grant awards and related expenditures for the current year ESSER allocations in the amount of $495,000.
Is this the last amendment? Is this the last?
Should be.
It
Yes.
should be, yeah.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Item B is salary schedule, and I recommend the board approve the 2021-22 salary schedule.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation to approve the 2021-22 salary schedule. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I'd like to show you something on the screen here that's a comparison. We won't go through all of these, but can provide these to you, certain board members if you want, but I broke down for you bachelor's, master's, ed specialist, and doctorate, because I think it's important to know the comparison. You're looking at the bachelor's degree pay. So I want to point out something to you, that the Alabama matrix works in 3-year increments. So you can see the first 3 years of experience are all the same. When you compare that to the Vestavia Hill City Schools, we have 27 different steps and they all increase each year. So a teacher that teaches in a system that uses just the Alabama State Matrix is paid those first 3 years and then that amount. And you can see what we pay our teachers. And I do want to tell you that while I can't say this year what the number will look like, I can tell you that the system is in the top tier paying salaries for teachers. That's where we want to be. I think that's one of the reasons we're able to attract very good teachers, excellent teachers. Now, in addition to the salary schedule this year is the teams salary schedule. And TEAMS is a acronym for a piece of legislation that was passed to provide incentives for those teachers in grades 6 through 12 who teach math or science full-time. And the difference, one immediate difference is a 189-day contract versus 187. But in the state of Alabama, each school system was given an additional amount to make up for the difference between the Alabama schedule and the TEAMS schedule. Every school is awarded that additional amount for every 105 students. So in the case of Vestavia Hill City Schools, we have funding for TEAMS contracts for teachers for 36 math teachers and for 36 science teachers. And one of the things on the agenda is the contract I'll talk about more in a few minutes, but you can see the difference in pay that results. So math teachers, science teachers that teach full-time in those areas can move to a contract that I'll explain in just a few minutes and would earn a different pay rate. And if you get down to 27 years for bachelors, you can see the difference with the Alabama schedule and the TEAMS schedule. It is significant. And it's significant as compared to Vestavia Hill City Schools schedule. But I wanted you to see this, one, to affirm to you that our teachers are making excellent pay, tops in the state. The TEAMS Act certainly adds to that, but the idea is to create an incentive for math science teachers. This is part of the schedule. I wanted to make sure you had seen that. I can show the rest of these if you'd like, but do you have questions on this particular look?
Teams will take effect at the start of this coming up school year?
It would, upon approval of contracts you make, it would start as early as this school year. That's right. Now, the salary schedule also, thank you, Whit. The salary schedule also addresses a couple of other things that some of you asked me to address this past year. So we did a salary schedule study of several areas that were non-certified areas. And what we identified when we compared market rates and neighboring systems is we found two salary schedules that we made adjustments for. One is the salary schedule for custodians. So we have made what I would say is a significant increase for custodians in years 1 through 9. After that, our schedule works to market rate and it looks good. In the transportation area, we did it above 10 years. There was a segment between 10 and 20 where we adjusted it up as well. What we were trying to do is make sure we're paying our support team appropriately, and so we use market analysis to do that. Meredith did a good job on that. I appreciate it, but those two schedules do affect a change that's different than the 2% change that all employees get. So the salary schedule, it calls for a 2% increase, and every employee gets a 2% increase. Something I do want to clarify is that our salary schedule does not match the percentage increases of the steps of the state matrix. This gets really confusing. But one of the things that the legislation addressed this year is some inadequacies as you get above about 9 years in the state salary matrix. So if a school district uses Alabama's salary, that's what they get. Employees above 9 years would see higher than a 2% increase. And depending on what degree it is, can go up to as high as above 5%. The thing that our board has to look at is because our pay is substantially above the state salary matrix. The only thing we have to make sure is that the salary we have is not less than the new state salary matrix, and none of ours are. We still pay, as I said, significantly above. But I want to make sure that all of our employees understand we made an adjustment of 2%, and not to get confused with that. Not to get confused with how the state salary matrix works. That makes sense?
Yes, thank you. Any other questions? All those in favor?
All right. Item C is I recommend the board approve the TEAMS contract as submitted.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation to approve the team's contract. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
The contract that you have reviewed is a draft contract that was prepared by the State Department. Mr. Boone reviewed the contract, and his words to me is it couldn't be improved upon, which I thought was a well-written contract. And so we have adapted it to language for Vestavia City Schools. And what will take place upon your approval is that we'll begin advertising the team's positions. They're not new positions, it's just we have these number of slots. Remember this number of 36 places we can fill. And so any of our teachers in grades 6 through 12 who meet the eligibility that we lay out in this contract could receive a team's contract. But it's something the superintendent has to bring to the board, which we would plan to do in July.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
So Meredith will be communicating that information to our teachers in the next couple of days.
There'll be mass communication out tomorrow, and we'll have the Teaching Alabama, the application open for teachers to apply.
Very good, thank you. All right, item D, I recommend the board approve the contract with the energy services company Schneider Electric.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation to approve the contract with energy services company Schneider Electric. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I want to commend Mr. Boone and the Schneider team. Todd Smith, Kyle Keith are with us this evening. Presented to you back in the spring, what I think is a grand plan for what we want to do with energy management and creating healthier schools. What we have with this contract is a contract in the amount of approximately $5 million that would be for improvements specifically to the high school. And that is essentially the school, the plant, when I say that, the boiler, chiller operation, lighting on the campus, the controls on the campus. And then the other project would be partial roof replacement at East. So you see a condensed version of what we originally gave you. That plan is still going to be in place. So once we're able to fund it appropriately, we feel like we're ready to do that. We can move ahead, but this will be a good project. And our start time, we think on this, Todd, is
Immediately.
Tomorrow morning, okay.
We'll be in touch shortly.
yeah. So
Mobilization
Yeah.
starts.
one of the things, the principals behind you, and I would imagine Red swimming just a little bit now, is the work that's done in this, we'll review with you, but a lot of it will happen when kids aren't on the campus. And a lot of things take place that they'll do, but it's a great project and a great start for us to demonstrate, I think, the value of doing something like this for our schools.
Excellent. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Right. All right, item E is just information for you, and it's something Mr. Stewart has filled out. It's his affirmation to abide by the principles of the School Governance Act, and he submitted that. I appreciate you doing that, Mr. Stewart. All right, items F and G are related to CSFO evaluation and superintendent evaluation. I'd like to introduce Jennifer Gray, who is with the Alabama Association of School Boards, and on your behalf has conducted this evaluation for Ms. Brown and me, and is going to review those findings.
Yeah, this is one for, for Steve.
I want to begin, first of all, by thanking the board for allowing AASB to be a part of this evaluation again, and for allowing us to work with you and for your continued partnership with us. We will go over the superintendent and CSFO results that instrument that was filled out earlier. And I do want everyone to be aware that before this meeting, Dr. Freeman and Ms. Weaver and Ms. Brown and myself met to go over the results in a private conference. That's only fair. Before any public results are presented about an individual, we feel that they need to have time to reflect and absorb those results in a private manner. So that's what we did earlier today. And let's see. Where should I be?
Back this way, but I may have to change it for you. I'll be.
Where should I be pointing? Okay. Well, how about if I just do this? And that work? Okay. Well, we're going to start with the superintendent's evaluation results. And the links to the online instruments for the superintendent evaluation were emailed to all 5 board members, and all 5 board members participated. And 25 direct reports were invited to participate in the evaluation, and 18 chose to do so.
This is the rating scale that was used, and the scale was used for both evaluations, so we'll go over this now. It goes from a 1 to 5 on the Likert scale, and you can see the 1 is the unsatisfactory with the 5 demonstrates excellence. And I want to remind everyone that is seeing this that a rating of 3 is the target. That meets expectations. So everything that's 3 or above, that's wonderful. Okay, the 4s and 5s are icing on cake. But I do want to tell everybody that not everyone is a role model in every area, and that 4s and 5s should not be the default rating. That they should be given when merited, but not just as a default. So as we move to the superintendent evaluation, we're going to start with the board member results. And the board's portion of the superintendent's evaluation contained 44 indicators. And the board gave the superintendent an overall rating of 4.4, which is excellent. As mentioned, overall, the board rated the superintendent, Dr. Freeman, a 4.4. And the following slides are going to disaggregate the data. But we want to remember that the superintendent works for the board as a whole, not 5 individuals of the board. So the ratings that you see on this slide represent the board's opinion as a collective whole. And you can see there that there are 10 categories. And just briefly here, as we glance at these, you'll see that there are 3 areas that scored a 4.6, which is between the exceeds expectations and demonstrates excellence. And those are professional development and leadership, facilities management, and financial management. And we've also talked about, at times in evaluations, an area for potential growth. And please take that term with a grain of salt. In some instances, it just may mean the lowest rated indicator on the slide, and it could still be a 4.0 or above. So doesn't mean that it's a weak area, it just means that it's the lowest area on this slide. And you can see, and as we look at the categories as a whole, personnel management was rated a 4.2, but that is still above exceeds expectations. So there may be slides that I won't even mention potential growth. There may be slides that I will. So we will move on. As we start to get into our disaggregated data for the superintendent, you'll notice that each board member is represented with a different color bar. And as you go through the slides, the colors will not change. Board member 1 will always be the navy blue, board member 2 will be the red, etc. And just so to relieve everyone's wonderings, we don't know if this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That bears no playing into this. But this slide will allow you to see how each board member rated the superintendent when compared to the other board members. You can also notice any patterns or outliers. Okay, we'll move on. The first category is CEO of the school board. And you're going to notice that in the remaining slides that an orange bar has appeared at the end, and that is the average of the 5 board members' ratings. And the category average for CEO is a 4.4. Again, right between the exceeds expectations and demonstrates excellence. And we have 3 indicators that were given a 4.6. Implements board policies, updates boards on status of programs, and performs duties as CEO as prescribed by law. An area for potential growth, again, it's above meets expectations at a 3.8, effectively serves as liaison between board and school personnel. So again, meeting the target. We move to educational leadership is the next category, and overall that category received a 4.3, and the fifth indicator in this category was given a 4.8, demonstrates problem-solving skills. And you'll see 3 within this category were given a 4.0, still exceeds expectations. Moving on to personnel management, the category average was a 4.2. And I do want to draw your attention that board member 4 chose not observed on the third indicator, and that does not affect the average, that was just thrown out. And the highest rated indicator on this category was a 4.8, develops and keeps current personnel policies. Community relations is the next category, and that was a 4.3, with the highest being 4.6, interacts with stakeholders in a positive, respectful manner. Management of pupil personnel services is the next category. Overall, a 4.5 within this category. You'll notice that board members 4 and 5 chose not observed on the second indicator. So again, that was just thrown out. And that is the indicator that received the highest rating at a 5.0, which is demonstrates excellence, and that is ensures accurate, comprehensive student record system is implemented and maintained. Under communication and interpersonal skills, this category received a 4.5 as well, with the highest rated indicator is the first one on the slide at a 4.8, speaks and writes clearly, correctly, and coherently. The lowest rated indicator in this category was given a 3.8, builds effective interpersonal relationships. But again, a 3.8 is just below, exceeds expectations, and still meeting the targets. Professional development and leadership is the next category, and that average is a 4.6. Notice board member 4 chose not observed on the first indicator, but the rest of the indicators all received a 4.6 there. Technology management received a 4.4, with the area of strength being the third indicator. It was given a 4.6, encourages employees to use technology to engage students. The next category is facilities management, and that category received a 4.6 as well. And the first 3 indicators were all rated with that. And again, a 4.6 is between the exceeds expectations and demonstrates excellence. And financial management is the last category for the superintendent. That category was given a 4.6, and you'll notice that all of the indicators received that rating. So from there, we'll move into the direct report results. And as mentioned earlier, these are the results from the 18 direct reports who responded. The instrument completed by the administrators covered 30 indicators. And overall, administrators rated the superintendent a 4.7. And as we go through the slides from the direct reports, please know that they are not categorized in any format, just 6 indicators on a slide. And you'll notice that the 5th indicator on this particular slide was given a 4.9, which is extremely high, just barely under demonstrates excellence, and that is under with the indicator of delegates leadership to central office and school staff and supports their achieving success in areas of responsibility. And you'll notice all of the other indicators on this particular slide, a 4.6 was the lowest. Moving on to the second slide with the direct reports, you'll find 3 in this on this slide that were given a 4.8, drawing your attention to the 3rd and 5th and 6th indicator. Moving on, next 6 indicators, we have 2 at a 4.8, lead system in celebrating students' academic achievements and is knowledgeable of laws and policies governing schools and systems. Again, the remaining indicators on this particular slide are in the range of 4.3 to 4.7. 5 of the 6 indicators on this slide received a 4.8. So again, just under the demonstrates excellence. Moving on, the final 2 indicators with the direct reports on numbers 5 and 6 received a 4.8 effective representative of system at school and community events and performs duties in a professional manner. So looking at the superintendent's evaluation, overall averages, board, you rated Dr. Freeman a 4.4, and his direct reports rated him a 4.7. And we do not average these 2 scores together because at the end of the day, the board is Dr. Freeman's direct supervisor. And if we did, your 5 scores would be lost among the other respondents. All right, so from here, we will move into the CSFO's evaluation overview. And the links to the online instruments to the CSFO, Ms. Brown, were emailed to 5 board members and all 5 participated. 24 peers and direct reports were invited to participate in the evaluation and 20 chose to do so. We're going to start with the board members' evaluation of the CSFO. Again, all 5 board members were invited and all participated. The board's portion of the evaluation contained 21 indicators, and the board gave the CSFO an overall rating of 4.5, which is the midpoint between exceeds expectations and demonstrates excellence. And here you'll see again the slide with all of the colors, each board member again represented by a color. The colors do not change. We'll start with the orange bar already on these slides, and remember that is the average of the board members' scores. Again, you can take note of any outliers as you look at this particular slide. And you'll notice that all of the indicators on this first slide are all at 4 or above, with indicators 1 and 3 being a 4.6. Prepares and presents annual budget in accordance with state law and provides board required monthly report of receipts and expenditures. And again, the same is holding true for Ms. Brown. If an area for potential growth, again, it could just be the lowest particular score on this slide. And as you can see here, all are at 4.0 or above. On this slide, please note that board member 3 chose not observed on the second indicator. Again, that had no bearing on the average. And there are 3 indicators on this slide that received a 4.6 in regards to the budget and presentation. Several board members on this slide chose not observed on the indicators, and again, that did not affect the average, but you will notice that on this particular slide, there are 3 indicators that received a 5.0, which demonstrates excellence. The other 2 are at a 4.0 and 4.5. As we move to the next slide, board member 5 chose not observed on the second indicator, and board member 1 chose not observed on the first and third indicator. There was 1 that did receive a 5.0, and that is the second indicator, indicates to SDE that all bank accounts are reconciled to system accounts on a monthly basis. The remaining indicators are between a 4.0 and 4.8. So now we will go to the CSFO evaluation superintendent results. And Dr. Freeman actually had 43 indicators to rate Ms. Brown on because he, of course, works very closely on a day-to-day basis with the CSFO. And overall, the superintendent rated the CSFO a 4.5, which is at the midway point between exceeds expectations and demonstrates excellence. And as we look at those indicators, they are not categorized on the slides. They're reporting in groups of 6. So on the first slide regarding the superintendent's ratings for the CSFO, you'll notice that we have 2 at a 5, prepares and maintains accurate financial records and maintains financial records in compliance with required reporting standards. All of the others are at exceeds expectations. Again, on the second slide, 2 rated a 5, and the remaining indicators are at a 4. As we look on this third slide, you'll notice that there is a 5 on the right, provides information and data to keep community informed on systems, business, and financial position. There is a 3, the first indicator received a 3, which again meets expectations, thinks creatively, and stimulates creativity in others. All of the remaining indicators on this slide received a 4, at exceeds expectations. Moving on, the first and second indicator received a 5, which demonstrates excellence. There was not a score given for the 5th indicator, and 2 of the indicators received a 3, which is at the meets expectations. All of the indicators on this slide were at exceeds or demonstrates excellence, with 4 of the 6 receiving a 5. We have a slide with all 5s demonstrates excellence in regards to preparing budgets, the leadership of the audits, completes and files annual budgets, and submitting the data to the SDE. 6 of the 7 on this slide are 5s, which demonstrates excellence. So that concludes the superintendent's results for the CSFO. And finally, we will come to the peer results. And the instrument completed by Ms. Brown's peers covered 5 indicators, and as was stated earlier, 24 were invited to participate and 20 chose to do so. And there's only 1 slide with the peer and direct reports. And the CSFO received an overall rating of 3.6 from her peers, which is well at the midway point between meets expectations and exceeds expectations. The first 2 indicators received a 3.4, keeps me informed about system matters pertinent to me, and I'm given the opportunity to provide input on system financial matters affecting me. And the final indicator received a 4.4, works with department heads and administrators in a professional manner. So again, everything there at meets expectations or above. So as we look at the CSFO evaluations, overall averages, the board gave Ms. Brown a 4.5, superintendent a 4.5, and peers a 3.6. And again, these scores are not averaged together. We need to keep those separate. So next steps, where do we go from here? As far as the board in your relations with superintendent and CSFO, it is to continue that ongoing dialogue with both parties to make sure that everyone is on the same page and working toward the same goals. And if you have goals that you are asking them to fulfill, go ahead and finalize those goals so they will know their expectations. And just remember that at the end of the day, when all of this is done, that the goal of any evaluation is to give the employees feedback so they have an opportunity to adjust their performance. And that, again, is only fair to do so. If they do not know their expectations, then they do not know how to perform and what they need to be working on. That's just a disservice, and I know that you would never do that. So any questions, concerns? Again, I thank you very much for allowing us the opportunity to work with you and present this information in a public forum.
Thank you. I'll just say, on behalf of the board, 5 years ago, we went out and hired Dr. Freeman, and we gave him the clear task of creating vision and strategic plan, short-term, long-term goals, and to be the clear leader for the district. And he has done that with leaps and bounds, with many curveballs thrown at him this past year. So it's his high character that allows him to lead. He puts excellent people in excellent positions, much to many of the people in this room. And he leads every day, right? And he notices we're never good enough, right? There's always another level we can be. We can always be better at something else. So he's continually working to make everything from every aspect of the district better from everywhere he works. So it is our pleasure to have you serve, and it has been a great year and a challenging year, but a great year.
Appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, absolutely.
Thank you, Ms. Gray. All right. Moving on to personnel, I recommend the board approve
Oh, well.
personnel actions as submitted.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation to approve the personnel actions. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
I have to finish up with a couple of reports for you to be informed of all things going on, and one is going to be our athletics report, and Coach Sears is joining us somewhere in cyberspace. Hey, Coach. Can you hear us?
Let me see if I can route the sound through the panel up there. So everybody can hear. Jeff, can you talk again? Make sure we got.
Hey, test.
There we go. We got you. We're good. Yep.
Y'all ready?
Ready?
Ready.
Thanks, Jeff. Take it away.
Okay, absolutely. Hey, I appreciate y'all letting me come today, and assuming I can't see the presentation, so we're not going to be working on this together. First slide it's Lone Rebel Athletics, and what we tried to do about 3 or 4 years ago was bring our athletic website under one place. So middle school, high school, this is where you go. And what I'm going to talk about today, if you've been to one of our parent meetings, a lot of this information you're going to have heard before, because what we want to do is we want to be very transparent with where we're spending those dollars that we ask parents to give, or that we ask our sponsors to go with. First thing I always like to do is talk about our medical partners, Jeff Dugas and Andrew Sports Medicine, ATI, and St. Vincent's and Ascension. They keep our kids and our coaches safe, and ours are second to none. We have a lot to be proud of, but our medical partners are probably one of the best things we can do. Go with. What I'm going to do is talking about revenues, and I want to make sure we understand. We're talking about athletic department funds right now. We have athletic department funds, general funds, and team funds. Most of our teams funds are developed by tickets or other type of fundraisers. So what I'm talking about today is just general athletic funds. The 4 main sources of fundraising or funds for our athletic department comes from sponsorships, our reserve blue seats and parking. Coach Anderson started this years ago. We're one of the few schools around here that take Friday night football and take money from that Friday night football and put it into a general athletic fund that helps all of our sports. And that's very important. Tennis, the golf, the swimming, they can't charge a ticket price. So they've got to have money from somewhere. And with Coach Anderson's leadership, we still follow that. That money from those 2 items come directly to benefit all of our sports. And really the major fundraiser from our parents is memberships. A $50 general family membership per year. Last year, that's 2 years ago, because I don't have these numbers yet, we had 888 athletes. If every family had to join, you can see that we would have raised $44,000. Go ahead, Whit. I also like to thank our corporate partners. So that they are we do. Without them, our kids we would be selling a lot more hams and oranges and everything else that a lot of people around here do for fundraising. And we look at it as not as a sponsorship, as a partnership. Go ahead, Whit. The other area that we look at is sponsorships with our signs. And what would we ask our parents and everybody to do is when you see these people who support us, say thank you. Go into their businesses, support them, and thank you because they are directly sponsoring us and helping our kids. Go ahead. All of our sponsorship opportunities, signage can be found. I get calls all the time. Hey, how can I? It's really easy. There's a sponsorship tab on One Rebel Athletics. Every bit of signage is on there. Go ahead. And really what we ask for out of our coaches is to encourage their parents to join our athletic association, our booster club. And really we want 100% participation. That's really what we are looking for out of all of our sports, and it's really easy to join. Go ahead, Whit. And you can see all the work to do. Some of these numbers don't look good, but they're a lot better than they were 3, 4, 5 years ago. A lot of people look at our booster club 3, 4, 5 years ago as a football booster club. It's anything but. And if you really want to know the truth, football probably gets less money per capita than any other sport. Go ahead, Rick. These are expenses for the 2020, 2021. This is everything that we paid out from the athletic department for a total of $220,000, over $220,000. Two items I really want to bring to your attention: transportation. We budget $45,000. We only had $17,000 in transportation this year. That's mainly due to COVID. Most of our coaches did not want to put their kids on buses just because of the proximity. And so we saw our transportation numbers decrease drastically. We expect those to come back up. And then the next one, about 4 or 5 down, facilities and equipment, over $88,000. And next, let's look at the reason why that is. Last fall of 2019, about November of 2019, we sent out an email to our coaches and said, hey, we want a wish list. And we decided that we need to start giving back to these sports and things they need. And we said, send us a wish list. I guess most of them didn't think they were going to get anything because those are the only ones we got responses for. And everybody who sent us a response got got most of what they asked for. And you can see, even during that COVID year of last spring and fall, we spent $56,000, gave over $56,000 back to our sports. We did it again this year, again with the COVID year, and this time just pretty much everybody sent something in. And as of last week, we had given back over $32,000. Depending on where our membership numbers are and our sponsorship numbers, we hope that goes up. So that's where we came up with that, over $80,000. What this doesn't show, okay, is in 2016, 2017, the athletic department, partnership with the board, invested $35,000 in our softball facilities, redoing the backstop. If you had been there pre-backstop, it was fencing and it was horrible. It's a beautiful facility with open sight lines now. It also doesn't include the new turf softball field and baseball. Major investments in redoing our tracks, which were greatly needed, and really giving our coaches and athletes a great space to meet by redoing the meeting room at the stadium. You see the brand mark over there on that right. Everything what we try to do with everything that our booster club buys, we try to brand it so that people can go and say, hey, that's where my money is going. And as you walk around our campuses, you can see that and know that those items particularly per the club dollars. Questions?
I have a question, Coach Seegers. How do you determine, not on the wish list items, but on the regular budget, what allocation the sport gets, like transportation, how do you determine what allocation is football, basketball, golf?
Yeah, so, and first let me say this, I'm not an accountant, I'm an educator, so a lot of this stuff I made up on my own. So we budget $45,000, and so what I guess developed is I actually have a spreadsheet, and if we go over it, we've only gone over once, is we go through and I say, okay, each sport is essentially budgeted about $1,800. And so we go over, I look at the ones that go over and I say, okay, what percentage did they go over? And then I charge them back for that. I think the most anybody's ever had to pay since I've been here for transportation was about $350. And I'm not looking exactly at that document, but that's how we determine where those transportation dollars go. Now, we also don't pay out of state travel. If you choose to go out of state, that is incurred by the individual sport.
Thank you.
Did that answer?
Yes, it did. Thank you, Coach Seegers.
Anybody else? I do want to thank all of y'all for, as everybody knows, that I am changing positions, and I've had the opportunity to work for the past 7 years with the greatest school system, with the greatest parents and educators and students in the world, and it just is something that I will cherish forever, being a part of our school system.
We thank you. We thank you for many years of dedicated service, and we wish you well at the state.
Absolutely. Okay. Dr. Freeman, Dr. Martin, y'all have anything else that you want me to cover?
No, I appreciate it. You sent out an email recently to all the Rebel Athletic folks that was really just bragging on accomplishments of the
Correct.
program this year, but maybe just a few highlights from that email.
Yeah, so, and this year, and I said this, I don't remember what I said, it was at a meeting. A lot of people in our community look back to the late 90s, specifically 98, 99, and that was a great year. And I would, looking at this year in our athletic department, I put this year up versus any year of the 90s. We were runner-up in boys cross country. We won state championship in wrestling in the winter. Our boys both made it into postseason. The girls making it to the Elite Eight, and if you were at that game, we were a shot away from being in the Final Four. We were in position. The girls just made a great shot. Our springtime sports were really unbelievable. It was a busy time in the spring, and when you're, as an athletic director, when you're busy at end of April, beginning of May, you know your sports are really, really, really good. Our boys golf won a state championship. Our boys track team, girls tennis was runner-up. Girls soccer made it into the finals. Into the Final Four. It was a fun year with a lot of challenges with COVID, but watching our kids compete, it was really a great year.
Coach, before you go, I want to just share with everyone what I think is a crowning achievement for you. There's been a lot of great success in the last few years in athletics, but as you all know, last summer, the first group we reintroduced back into school were our athletes. And so we didn't really know what to expect. We did the best we could, but when I looked at our numbers in terms of the ability to keep our kids playing during this, practicing during the summer, playing during the fall, it actually was just phenomenal. So, this is not necessarily the last year you want to have in a pandemic, but the way you handled it was exceptional, and it goes toward your integrity and what I think is just an incredible work ethic because you love the place. So I really appreciate you doing what you did last year, and wish you all the best.
Well, thank you very much, and I appreciate y'all let me go one last time. So, okay, y'all have a great night.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate that.
Bye-bye.
So Coach finishes up this week, and at that point, board members, Tony Rozelle will really serve as acting athletic director, high school principal is the place we're going to do that for now. So We don't want her to be
Since she
acting,
had nothing else to do.
Right. We don't want her to act as AD very long, because she does have a full-time job. What our plan is now, we've advertised the position, we've received applications, we're keeping it open. Dr. Martin and Ms. Roselle, myself, will be working in tandem on this project, and I would anticipate that we're scheduling interviews during July. I'd like to bring to you a recommendation July 26th, so we could get someone on board as quick as possible before fall sports or when fall sports begin. I won't guarantee you that would happen, but that's our objective, to move this quickly as possible. Any questions on that process? One of the things I think that you should be aware of is that there's been a lot of work Jeff's been a part of, Dr. Martin's been a part of, to provide information to who will be the new athletic director. That includes an ongoing athletic strategic plan that we're doing, an ongoing capital planning conversation. We are gathering information on student fees. What are our student athletes paying to be a part of, or their parents paying to be a part of this? And then we're looking at supplements. We're doing analysis of those as well to make sure we're in the top tier with supplements. And we want to be able to provide that information to our athletic director, which we think is a comprehensive way to get started on places to move our program forward. So I look forward to seeing the great things to come. All right.
Before we move on from the athletics, I want to highlight our board member, Scott Brown. Old memorabilia when Scott was in high school. Guess you graduated in what, 92? So speaking of athletics,
State champion.
this is our Alabama state tournament that Scott was a member of the team.
While he was a math team state champion as well.
I'm not done.
Oh, you got time.
My dad found these. He's got all kinds of memorabilia, but this was in his office for our math team. So he was an athlete and a scholar. So we are very blessed to have him on our board. What is your brother's name? You're welcome.
There we are, page 32.
It's a long time ago.
Jay? Was Jay on that team too?
They graduated the year before.
Yes, but we lost. To the state
That's
championship.
right.
But then he had one more shot at it and got it done. But I want to point out that math team, it's a national championship.
Yeah.
It was just not state championship. It was, did y'all go out to Seattle or?
That year was actually either New York or Huntsville.
Yeah.
But yeah, Miss Tipton had a run of 8 out of 9 years or 9 out of 10 years winning the national championship. So it was an amazing run of excellence, which is all we expect.
We're so proud of you, Scott.
Oh, yeah, I have one myself. All right, do we have that one?
I don't have that.
Okay, we don't have to project this. It's just, I wanted to let you know that to comply with some federal requirements for ESSER funds, which we receive virtually none, but there is some amounts that we get off of an excess of ESSER federal funds. We have to provide reopening plans. It has to be provided online for people to see. We have a reopening plan that we used last year, but it is going to look very different this year. Essentially what you'll be seeing, the draft I provided for you, what you'll be seeing essentially is a return to normal operations. And the one thing I would say as a caveat to that, quarantining of students has always existed. Contact tracing has always existed. This year, we did the majority of contact tracing and quarantining, but it's not an official function of a school board, and we don't intend to do that this year. But I do need to say to you that that's always been in place, and because COVID-19 is a notifiable disease, Brenda and her team, if they get a positive student, we have to report that. Then public health takes it from that perspective and does contact tracing, quarantine. So, the decision for vaccinations is certainly up to parents, and I'm not involving myself in that, but I do think it's important to point out that that is a piece of things that will remain in place this year, and it will be important, I think, for everyone to realize the quarantining could still happen, but that'll be something given to us really about public health. But beyond that, the operation is normal, and we'll continue to keep high standards, keep our kids in school.
So basically on the quarantine, instead of our nurses contacting parents, you will hear from Jefferson County Health Department.
That's right. That is our plan. That's really the function it's supposed to have. So we don't, I mean, I'm sure we may have some cases that would be to be expected, but our role primarily will be to report it.
And then turn it over.
And we'll be available for assistance, you know.
And that's how we're functioning this
Sitting
summer.
charts or
correct?
things, that's right. We're doing that this summer. There are things that can help them with the process.
Excellent.
I'm looking forward to it being a normal operation.
Yes. All right.
Okay.
Okay, I will entertain a motion to move into executive session for the purpose of discussing preliminary negotiation involving matters pursuant to Alabama Code 36-25A-7. I want to remind everyone of the following. No action can be taken during an executive session. There will be no vote taken during an executive session. No minutes of the executive session will be made. I request Dr. Freeman, Mark Boardman, and Pat Boone attend the executive session. I estimate the executive session will last approximately 60 minutes. Following the executive session, the call board meeting will reconvene. Mr. Boardman, can you comment on the motion for an executive session?
Be happy to. As an attorney licensed to practice law in Alabama, and certified by the Vestavia Hills Board of Education, the board can meet in executive session such legal implication of and legal options for pending litigation, controversies not yet litigated but imminently likely to be litigated, or controversies likely to be eliminated if the board pursues a certain course of action.
Excellent, thank you. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.